Hey guys, welcome to another one. So I finally got my hands on these Solinco extended length rackets. I initially was kind of excited and then not excited because I sort of went through that thing where I just ruled out all 16 by 19 rackets pretty much, and I kind of have to retrace my footsteps and recant a bit of what I said. But let's look at these specs real quick. The Whiteout is a little bit heavier and it's a little bit less headlight. And it's probably concentrated somewhat on the head of the racket because the balance is 32 as opposed to 31.5. So I found the Blackout to be more maneuverable, and that's always something I look for in extended length rackets, but the story doesn't end quite there. So here I am rallying with a friend of mine, has a nasty serve, you'll see later. Maybe it's hard to tell on camera anyway, but when he wants to, he's serving in the 100 pluses, flat balls, absolute bombs. Takes a little while to warm up to them, but yeah, that'll be on camera a little bit later, so stay tuned for that if you want to see me serve and return for the first time on any footage I've uploaded somehow. Normally I just rally, I guess. That's kind of why, but you'll see me serve in a bit. And yeah, decided to open up my mind a little bit after rejecting 16 by 19s. Again, if you guys ever saw my video about why I'm selling the E-Zone 98, it had a lot to do with the fact that it was just too powerful. So I associated a lot of things and kind of confused myself a little bit just based on my journey with that racket specifically. Like, I just kind of started swearing by 16 gauge strings and assuming 16 by 19 patterns are not going to work out for me. So I think those are two things that I'm kind of stepping away from as a hardcore belief of mine, and this is kind of me exercising that change by trying out these Solinco rackets. But you know, the pickings are pretty slim out there for extended length rackets that are any good, and I think Solinco just added 2 to the game, so I mean I had to try them, right? I've tried everything else that there is to try. Even Angel. I still get suggested Angel, but I don't think everyone knows that I've tried those rackets already. The TC95 is the one that I have. But let's not get too off topic. We can just watch me hit for a second here. I move with the racket pretty well. It definitely gives me good spin, good control, good power, kind of good everything, good feel. I'll talk a bit more about how the Whiteout compares to the Blackout, but obviously this white racket is the Whiteout, as the name would imply. The funny thing is you can't find much on these rackets online right now. There's a couple of reviews, but you can't really go anywhere and actually find specs like you can on a typical racket with, like, you know, Tennis Warehouse or something like that. So I put them up for you in the beginning. I talked to a guy named, I think, Roman at RPNY, and he's worked with Solinco very intimately to create this racket, actually. So he gave me the specs, but they're on the racket as well. But they're there for you to ponder if you're curious. So what is there to say about this racket? I'm going to talk about the two as if they're the same for now. And then I'll talk about the differences, because the differences are somewhat subtle, and I'm still getting to know them. But initially when I switched back and forth between the two rackets, I really couldn't tell any difference. And actually just looking at them side to side and so on, I really couldn't tell any difference either. One says that it's a 98 and the other one is a 100, but I put them right next to each other and I can't tell any difference in the head size. I'd actually maybe even go as far as to say that they're using the exact same head guard and grommet, but I'm not 100% on that, but it just, I can't tell any difference whatsoever. But I can tell that the beam is a little bit thicker on the Blackout than it is on the Whiteout. And as far as feel goes, the Whiteout is definitely a little bit more softer. It kind of gives you the impression that it's a more control-oriented racket, but these rackets aren't really night and day different. One's just a little more soft and control-oriented, I suppose, and the other one is more spin-friendly and power-oriented. But they still have a lot of both of those things. They both are pretty high power, pretty high spin. My main issue with 1619s, it's really about breaking strings. I don't necessarily want to have to use 16 gauge strings again, but I might be down to do that for this. I break strings every 3 hits or so. And for me, as someone that plays every day, that means I have about 2 rackets I have to string a week, you know? But that's with 17 gauge strings, which I went back to try out some things with my VCORE 95. This is the Blackout. So I can say right away that maybe the favorite of my two so far is the Blackout. By the time that you're seeing this video, this is maybe my fourth hit or so with it. And I started to appreciate just how it's the more maneuverable of the two. And I think as you get into extended length rackets, just a few grams and a point even in headlight balance can make a big difference in whether or not you can really mesh with the racket. Because I think anytime you make the racket a little bit longer, you start to push the limits of what your swing weight should really be. Like you start to get really close to the edge of what you're able to swing efficiently and effectively. And for me, I don't really have an exact number, but I want to keep it around 335 or less. The Solinco Whiteout came out to about 334, whereas the Blackout came out to a surprising 322, and that is swing weight measured with strings and with a dampener. So to me, that's like, wow, you know, the VCORE 95 strung without a dampener, according to Tennis Warehouse, measures out to be about 316. So to think that I can add an extra ½ inch and have my dampener on there and it comes out to 322, I mean, that's just a few units away from a VCORE 95 at standard length. So in theory, this racket should swing just as easily as a stock VCORE 95 strung without a dampener, which to me is very exciting, because it's really hard to find a racket out there that's long and easy to swing and still plays well. But I feel like the Blackout might be the one to do it. And I'd say that the Whiteout is too, because it's still a pretty maneuverable racket, but it's just that little difference that I feel, 10 points in swing weight and then the balance being slightly more tipped towards the head. It's a noticeable difference throughout the course of your hit or your day. You notice that you have to work a lot harder just to get a bit more brush on the ball. And when you're trying to return a ball with power that's coming really low, like a low slice, it's nice to be able to rip those, but it takes a lot of head velocity and topspin to be able to pick up a ball like that and hit it with any pace or direction, and I definitely struggle to do that with the Whiteout more so than I do with the Blackout. So it's possible that I would just get along better with the Blackout. And it's funny because on paper these rackets to me really do kind of seem like Pure Drive-esque or something like that, but they're not. I don't want to make that comparison too much because these rackets definitely are kind of their own thing. They have elements of the Pure Drive and so on that I like, but they offer more feel and more comfort, and that's a big deal for me. So there is a decent possibility, I would say, that one of these rackets is going to be a contender for my next racket officially. And that's an exciting thing to say. I've been looking for a while, as you guys know, and if you don't, then you can look back on my racket journey. Just look at my little bit of video history and stuff. I talk about why extended rackets aren't popular and my racket history and so on. And so you can watch videos and get a taste of what I've gone through and what I'm looking for. But my ideal racket would be one that comes in extended length without needing to be modified. And so far I'm really liking it, but major complaint is that I break strings extremely quickly. So that is with 17 gauge strings. They last me each about 3 hits. And I guess I'm going to have to try 16 gauge again. And that might be fine, because 16 gauge feels terrible in some rackets. Like that VCORE 95, super string sensitive. Really uncomfortable racket if you don't get the string tension dialed in just right, I must say. So I kind of get the impression that these Selenko rackets aren't going to be that string sensitive. I've honestly never played with a racket as string sensitive as the VCORE 95. So it's funny, man. You can just have a racket dictate so much about what you think when it comes to strings or string patterns or tensions, you know. And then you try a bunch of other rackets and you're like, wow, the racket really affects a lot of what you thought was or wasn't true, you know. So I'm going through a bit of that, and I think the VCORE 95 is one extreme example, and the E-Zone 98 is another extreme example in my racket history of rackets that have totally thrown me for a loop in terms of what I thought would work well for me in terms of the strings and the racket setup. So I think that this racket shows a lot of potential for me, and I might try 16 gauge strings again just to see if I can get a little bit more control and definitely get a little bit more durability. So we'll try some 16 gauge strings again, because that's my main gripe, is the string breakage and how often that happens. But otherwise, so far, really nothing bad to say about these rackets. I think that the Whiteout might be a little bit more cumbersome feeling, but again, I'm going to give it more time before I decide that officially. And yeah, they're both string breakers, but maybe 16 gauge strings will be fine in this racket. So we'll see. The journey continues. Stay tuned if you guys want to hear more. I'm excited to review this racket more and test out some more strings. I have a bunch of strings and some string products that I'm going to review. I know some of you guys have been waiting for that because I had a pretty cool showing of product coming out that I want to do video content on. So that's going to be my focus. After this video, I'm going to release a few videos in a row, back to back, real soon, of some of the content that video I'm talking about was referring to. So stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for updates on this Solinco racket. I'm going to go pretty hard on the video and the updating stuff this week. So yeah, I will see you guys there. Please like and subscribe. I hope to see you guys in a future video, and help me grow this channel, because helping me help you, etc. Yeah. All right. I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye.